Stop everything you are doing right now, lean in, and pay full attention because what happened only 13 minutes ago has already shaken the entire production set, and if you miss a single detail, you will miss the moment that everyone will soon be talking about. Watch closely, listen carefully, and stay with me till the end because this is the kind of drama that changes everything. The sun was just beginning to fade behind the tall studio buildings when tension started tightening the air on set. The cameras were ready, the lights were already warming the space, and the crew members were scattered around with quiet whispers running like secret currents. No one expected anything unusual. No one expected explosions of emotion. And absolutely no one expected the moment that would bring the entire filming to a shocking standstill. Shen Yue walked onto the set with her script in hand, her eyes heavy with something that no one could quite understand. She had been quiet since morning. Too quiet. Even Bai Lu had tried asking her if she was alright earlier, but Shen Yue only smiled with those soft eyes that hid everything she refused to say. She was holding something inside, something she was not ready to release. Then came Miles Wei. He stepped into the studio with that calm expression he always carried, but there was something fierce underneath it. He looked like a man who had already made a decision, and that decision carried weight on his shoulders. The moment the two locked eyes, the energy changed. The entire crew felt it. It was like someone shifted the ground beneath their feet. Something sharp. Something dangerous. The director called for the scene to begin. It was supposed to be a gentle confrontation scene between their characters, a simple exchange of words ending with a quiet walk away. But instead, the air turned into an arena. As the cameras rolled, Shen Yue's voice trembled with emotion that was too real, too raw, and too intense for the scripted lines. She delivered the first sentence, and her voice did not sound like acting. It sounded like truth. Painful truth. Miles stepped closer, saying his lines with a firmness that seemed heavy with secrets. His eyes were locked on hers, refusing to look anywhere else. But then it happened. They were supposed to stop. They were supposed to pause. But neither of them followed the script. Shen Yue broke character first. She dropped her script on the floor, her hands shaking. The sound echoed across the studio, and every crew member froze. Miles looked at her with wide eyes, realizing instantly that something inside her had snapped. "What is wrong with you?" Miles whispered under his breath, not for the camera but for her. "You know exactly what is wrong," Shen Yue replied, her voice cracking in a way that sent a chill through everyone watching. Miles moved closer, too close for comfort, and the director immediately shouted cut. But they did not stop. It was as if they were trapped inside their own storm, blind to everything else around them. Shen Yue took a step back, her chest rising and falling rapidly. "You keep pretending nothing happened," she said. "You keep acting like everything is fine." Miles clenched his jaw, not in anger but in frustration. "You, please, not here," he whispered. But Shen Yue was already past the point of holding back. Her emotions spilled out like a tide she could no longer control. She told him that she was tired of hiding, tired of being quiet, tired of carrying secrets that were never her responsibility in the first place. The crew exchanged confused glances. What secrets? What were they talking about? Was this real? Was this still acting? No one knew. The tension rose so quickly and so fiercely that even the main producer stepped forward, whispering urgently to the assistant director to stop everything before it went too far. But it was already too late. Miles raised his voice for the first time, something he never did on set. "Then tell them," he said. "Tell them the truth since you refuse to carry it any longer." Shen Yue's hand shook as she pointed at him. "You said you were going to handle it. You said I would never have to deal with it alone." Her voice cracked, and in that moment, the set felt like it was shrinking around them, drawing every eye, every breath, every heartbeat toward their confrontation. Miles looked torn between anger and regret. He whispered her name softly, almost pleadingly. But she shook her head, tears filling her eyes. "Not this time," she said. "Not anymore." The director shouted again, louder this time, but the two stood locked in a silent battle of emotions until Bai Lu rushed onto the set from the corner where she had been watching. "You, stop," Bai Lu cried, reaching for her arm. But Shen Yue pulled away, eyes burning with hurt that went deeper than anything anyone had ever seen from her before. The entire studio was silent. The camera operators stared. The lighting crew stood frozen. Even the sound engineer forgot to breathe. Then the studio doors burst open and the executive producer stepped in with a stern expression. "Enough," he said. "Everyone, gather in the conference room. Now." An emergency meeting. 13 minutes after the clash began. 13 minutes after the atmosphere of the entire production shifted from quiet professionalism to emotional chaos. Shen Yue walked out first, her steps unsteady. Miles followed a few seconds later, but he kept his distance. Bai Lu stayed behind for a moment, staring at the space where their confrontation had erupted, trying to understand what had just happened. Inside the conference room, the tension continued to grow. The executive producer demanded explanations, but all he received were silent glances and unfinished sentences. Shen Yue would not speak. Miles would not speak. They sat on opposite sides of the room, refusing to look at each other. Crew members whispered among themselves. Some said they saw tears in Shen Yue's eyes before she walked in. Others said Miles looked like he was fighting to hold himself together. No one knew the truth. No one knew what pushed them over the edge. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of silence, Shen Yue lifted her head. She looked at the producer and spoke in a soft, shaky voice. "If you want the truth," she said, "then let him start." Every head slowly turned toward Miles. He exhaled deeply, leaned forward, and rested his hands on the table. His voice trembled as he said, "Fine. I will." The room fell silent again, the kind of silence that stretches so far it starts to feel like it has weight. And before Miles could utter another word, the lights flickered, the hallway filled with hurried footsteps, and someone burst through the door with a message that made everyone rise to their feet in shock. The emergency meeting room felt colder than the rest of the set. The lights were dim, the air thick, and every seat held someone who had witnessed the chaos that erupted only minutes earlier. Shen Yue sat near the end of the table, her hands trembling slightly, her eyes fixed on the floor. Miles Wei stood near the window, breathing deeply as though each breath was a battle. Dylan Wang arrived last, taking the empty chair across from them with a calm face that was hiding a storm. The director entered and the room fell silent instantly. His expression was heavy, disturbed, and burdened by what had just happened. He placed his notes on the table with controlled force and looked at all three of them, one at a time, letting the silence cut deeper than words ever could. 13 minutes had turned the entire production upside down. 13 minutes that no one could erase. The director finally spoke. His voice was calm but sharper than anyone expected. "We cannot continue like this. Whatever happened today was not only unprofessional, it was dangerous to the emotional stability of everyone on this set. We need clarity. We need honesty. And we need it now." Shen Yue lifted her eyes slowly, her voice soft yet steady. "I did not mean for it to escalate. I was overwhelmed. Things had been building up for weeks and I could not carry it anymore." Miles turned slightly, his expression changing from frustration to regret. "I reacted because I was worried. I have seen her trying to hold everything together. She never complains. She never asks for help. I thought I was defending her, but maybe I crossed the line." Dylan leaned forward, his elbows on the table, his gaze fixed on both of them. "You were defending her," he said quietly, "but the way you came at me made it look like I was the problem, like I had caused everything. I was just trying to help her too, but none of us listened. We all assumed. We all made it worse." The room went still. The raw truth hung in the air, heavy and painful. Shen Yue pressed her hand against her forehead, her emotions spilling through her voice. "I felt trapped," she whispered. "Between expectations, deadlines, pressure, and then all of you worrying about me in different ways. It felt like everyone was pulling me apart without realizing it. For a moment Miles and Dylan both looked at her with the same expression, a mix of guilt and shock, realizing how deeply their actions had affected her without them noticing. The director sighed deeply, rubbing his temples. You are three of the most talented actors I have ever worked with. But talent means nothing if it cannot survive pressure. He paused, letting his words settle. So here is what is going to happen. Everyone leaned forward. You are going to talk, all three of you. Not as actors, not as celebrities, but as people who clearly care about each other but lost control today. When you finish talking, we will decide how to move forward. But this silence, this tension, this hidden emotion, it cannot continue. He stood and quietly walked out, leaving them alone. For a while, no one moved. No one spoke. The silence felt almost unbearable. Finally Miles sat down, his voice stripped of ego and defensiveness. Shen Yue, I am sorry. I thought I was protecting you, but I was only adding more weight. I did not see how much you were carrying. Shen Yue blinked back tears, her voice trembling. I know you meant well. I just did not know how to say that I needed space, not more pressure. Dylan exhaled slowly. I should have spoken to you directly instead of stepping back and watching things crumble. I thought giving you room was the right choice, but maybe it only made you feel unsupported. Her lips quivered, the truth finally rising from her chest. I always felt supported by you both, just in very different ways, she confessed. But when you two clashed today, it felt like the world around me cracked open. I did not want to be the reason for anyone to fight. Miles leaned back with a deep breath. Then let us stop fighting. For you. For the work. For the peace we all need. Dylan nodded slowly. I agree. No more assumptions. No more silence. If something hurts us, we speak. If something confuses us, we ask. If something worries us, we handle it together. Shen Yue looked at the two of them, and for the first time since the clash, she felt something lift off her chest, something heavy that had been there for far too long. The tension cracked, softer now, gentler, like dawn breaking through the darkest night. They spoke for a long time, quietly, honestly, and without fear. They talked through every misunderstanding, every worried thought, every hidden frustration. And with every word spoken, the weight between them melted away. By the time the director returned, the room felt different. Warmer. Softer. Human. He looked at their faces, saw the peace returning to their eyes, and gave a small nod. Good. Then we can continue. But remember this moment. Use it. Let it teach you. Let it strengthen you. And with that, the meeting ended. Shen Yue stood first, Miles stood next, and Dylan stood last. They exchanged a glance that held more meaning than words could ever describe. A silent understanding, a quiet promise, a renewed bond formed through conflict and clarity. When they walked back to the set, every crew member felt the shift. The air no longer crackled with tension. Instead, it hummed with something far stronger, something that could only be forged through facing the truth together. And though the world outside only saw the drama of the clash, the real story, the real healing, belonged to the three of them alone. A story of tension, truth, and a bond that refused to break.